What's going on, everyone? You're back with Jono for another quick math lesson. Today we're going to look at how to find an unknown side length when we're using these area questions if we've been given the area answer already. So this time we're kind of working backwards from the questions we've looked at in the last couple of lessons. So the only thing that we really need to know in order to get these questions right is the formulas of each of the shapes we've looked at. So remember that the area of a square is just the side length multiplied by itself, or s squared. If we're looking for the area of a rectangle, that's just how high up it does it go, right? What's one side length? And multiply that by its base, or the other one. And that's written as LB, or length times breadth. And the last one we've looked at is the area of a triangle. And we know that a triangle is just exactly half of a rectangle. As long as we've got the base and the height, we just have to multiply that by a half, because it's a half of that rectangle. So these three formulas are key in order to get this lesson fully correct. So one big kind of lie about this whole measurement topic is really we're just talking about equations again. Except unfortunately for you, you have to make the equations for these ones using the measurement knowledge that we've been getting. So if you're not fully on top of equations, please go have a look at my earlier videos looking at 1 and 2 step equations, because they will come in handy for this topic 100%. So the best way to think about these is you've actually already been given the answer. I know what the area of this square is. It's 9 meters squared. So I'm going to put down my answer straight away. This whole thing is 9 meters squared. What we've been asked to do is find out what number fits into the formula to make this true. So the formula for finding a square is s multiplied by itself, or s squared. But I don't care what s squared is. I actually already know that. It's 9. I've got to find out what s is by itself. So the opposite of squaring a number is to square root it. So if I square root these two sides, I will get the correct answer. So the square root here gets rid of the squared sign, but it also does that to the other side as well. It's going to get rid of that meters squared and turn that just into meters. And this makes sense. A straight line can't have an area. It's just one distance in one direction. So our answer is not going to be in meters squared, but meters by itself. So you should know what this is, but if you don't, you can throw it into your calculator. S is just equal to 3 meters. And that's our final answer. That's all we've got to do. One thing we do have to be aware of is when we square root a number, we usually get 2 answers. That's because 3 times 3 is 9, but minus 3 times minus 3 is also 9 as well. But for these questions, we can just write down that one number because you can't have a negative distance. So 3 is the only answer that works. So just for a second example, the area of this square is 17.5 centimeters squared. So all I've got to do really quickly, s squared is equal to 17.5 centimeters squared. Square root both sides. Square root both sides. If the teacher does ask you to give it an exact value, all you've got to write is the square root of 17.5. That's the closest we can get, the exact number. But if they ask you to give it to 2 decimal places, which is what usually happens, just throw it in your calculator. And once you throw that into your calculator, the answer is s is equal to 4.18 centimeters, not squared because that got rid of it, but that is our final answer. So it's really just a one-step equation. So now I've got to find what this side length of the rectangle is. This looks a little bit harder, but it's actually, I think, a little bit easier. So I know what my answer is again for this one. I know that the final answer is equal to 36 centimeters squared. But before I get to that, I've got to work out what sentence would make this true. So I know that the 4 centimeters has to be multiplied by the base. That's how we find the area of a rectangle. So this is going to be 4 times the base in centimeters as well. Going back to normal algebra, if I've got 4 centimeters times my unknown, I just have to do the exact opposite in order to get the correct number. So instead of 4 times, I'm going to divide this side by 4 centimeters, and I'm going to divide this side by 4 centimeters as well. They all get rid of each other. I'm left with b centimeters, so that's what I want my thing in, is equal to 36 divided by 4 is 9, happy days. And then one of the centimeters on top, so centimeters squared, cancels out with the centimeters from below, leaving me with 9 centimeters. You usually don't have to put in these units. I'm just putting them there so you're really clear on how we go from centimeters squared into centimeters. And that is super important. So really, if you are writing this as your final answer, we would say that the base here, the base length is just equal to 9 centimeters, and that's full marks. Happy days. So it is just important when we have a look at these questions that we look at the units. So the answer here is in centimeters squared, but the length I've been given down here is meters. So we've got to make sure that these are the same units, otherwise we can't do anything. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this number down here into centimeters. I know that 1.07 meters is the same as 107 centimeters. Once I've done that, this is exactly the same as the last question. I just have to do a one-step equation. So this is just x multiplied by the base, or 107, is equal to 2046 centimeters squared. I've got times 107, so I'm going to divide by 107 to both sides. So divide this by 107 on both sides, and that's my final answer. X is equal to 19.12 centimeters. That's all we had to do. You would get the exact same answer if you converted the area into meters, so really don't stress. I just prefer to use the outside numbers just because. Last one here, we've got a triangle. We've got to find out how tall it is. All we've got to do is throw in the formula and then move some stuff around. So I know that the formula for a triangle is a half multiplied by the base, which is 7 meters here, multiplied by the height, which is h, and that has to be equal to 28 meters squared, or what we've been given. So now what I've got to do is get the h by itself. So I'm going to divide the 7 and the half over to the other side. One little trick that you can do is multiply those two numbers together first, but please write that down. So a half multiplied by 7 is 3.5 times h, and that's equal to 28 meters squared. From here, all I've got to do is divide over that 3.5. So divide by 3.5 and divide by 3.5. And once you throw that into your calculator, you've got that h is equal to 8. And that's our final answer. Again, throw in your units, which would be meters as well. So something that's really good about these questions is you can just sub those numbers back into the equation to see if you get the correct area. So we found there that the height was 8. So the formula would be a half multiplied by 8 multiplied by 7. And that has to equal 28. If it doesn't, we've done something wrong. A half multiplied by 8 is just 4. 4 times 7 is 28. So we know we got this one right. I do hope you guys found this helpful. Writing your own mathematical equations is difficult, but once you get that skill, I guarantee you'll smash the topic of area. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later.